Okay, so again, today is going to be, we're going to be introducing the parts of facility management. This is part 1 of 2. Again, our second part will be on Thursday. Our Thursday time probably is going to be at 4:15 due to our meeting with the department. So it's at 3 o'clock. So we will have, we'll probably be doing a 4:15 final training on Thursday. So be watching for the appointments for that. The introduction to facility management. Again, if you are listening and have anybody else that wants to get on, here's the information for the meeting. All of our video trainings and stuff up through last week are up now, and we do have them at the link below on YouTube. Etiquette-wise, for those, so everybody can hear, make sure you stay muted. Again, the presentation is being recorded, so we can share with staff later on in a future date. And make note of any questions that you do have at the beginning, and at the end we will then have a Q&A session. And when you do see the Q&A session, the presentation will be over. And let's go ahead and get into today. So overview, we are going to again showcase the internal versus external bookings. We're going to see what the difference is between those. We're then also going to walk through how, remember that wizard, which is really nice in ActiveNET. I think it kind of walks you through that process nicely. But we'll see how the wizard works inside reservations. We'll then understand what the difference is in the different resources that we can book. And then you're going to see how you pay for it, and then you can also do payment plans inside the reservation side, which is really nice, and it's very, very flexible too. You do it pretty much any kind of combination, so we'll see that as well. And then at the end, when you get to finishing that reservation, you can export the permit to several different outputs, meaning mostly PDF, but you can also do it in other ways as well. So we're going to look at all of those on this first part today of facility management. Now, we first start out with internal and external bookings. The thing to remember about these bookings is that when you do it internal, you're dealing with more just holding rooms that's not going to have a fee to them. So again, internal bookings in ActiveNET refer to bookings that do not have fees. Whenever you select it, it's going to always come up as $0. And then again, you can use those to block out maintenance type requests, internal task events, and all of it. It's really straightforward, and we've seen those in a lot of other booking softwares as well. But when you have internal bookings, there's no fees tied to it. And some of the resources we'll look at today will include those with you have facilities, you have instructors, and you can do equipment resources too. If you decide to put equipment in there to check out and reserve, you can put those also as a calendar and book them out. So again, those are the 3 different types of resources that you can use in ActiveNET. Just to give you a highlight, this is kind of what you'll see whenever you come onto and again, they've just revised the resource calendar now on ActiveNET, which is it's a lot more robust, and I think it actually handles and loads a lot quicker from what it used to be. And again, you're going to see at the top here, you're going to have your center, so you can select between any of your locations. We just talked about that resource type. It could be the facility, the instructors, and also equipment. When you do select these, and then you have over here on the far side, your different resources will be tied to the resource type. And then you can select between the different facilities, or also known as rooms or rental spaces inside of ActiveNET. All of those can be selected from the final menu. So that's how you'll see it, and you can again switch it between month and day, and then you can get on the calendar as well and see it as well. Again, on the options on facility management, you select that center, you get the resource type. Just remember, these 3 are your common things you'll see when you get on there. And again, that's just to break that down. It's a center, again, relating to a location, for instance, Tony Shotwell Center. Select a resource type. We want to rent out a facility or rent out one of our spaces, so we will select facility. And then the resources part of it will then become the rental little space that you want. So again, those are the 3 things you'll be looking for when you go through booking. Now, when you get on here, some of the things I learned as going through selecting these rental spaces. When you do select the facility, that if you're going to be renting out a space, you'll want to select that, but then you also want to click off of it to allow, and we'll see this preview in the trainer, but you want to get off of that so it will load the actual resources to select the rooms. So again, make sure to click on that calendar, and then that resources menu will then, and the calendar is below, you'll see all of the different graphs of the actual rooms listed, and then it will allow you to select that room however you want to, what you want to book. So again, just to kind of, that's something I just wanted to highlight at the beginning. And there's those resources. So again, when you get the example of these choices, this is what you will see under the resource menu. If you were selecting the center as the main one, then you would, if you select the summit as the center, you would see in the resource part of it the list of all of our different rooms that we can book. So then those are all in there as well. And then once you do check them off, you'll click on the calendar, and then it will list the rooms that you've selected. Now also you'll see at the top up here, we have a couple little menu buttons as well that I wanted to highlight. So when you wanted to review those reservations that are that you've already had on the book, you can actually click on this little menu button, kind of what you see whenever you go onto the responsive website. And again, it brings out a menu very similar to this. You will be able to see your reservations listed below when you click that. Again, it's housed at the top right corner of the menu. You'll see a quick view, which again, your different locations can create a special calendar of your most common things that you want to have to be able to get to quickly. You can set up a quick view. Some of us have put those together, I believe, at the Charles E. England Center when we were putting all of the data in. Same thing here. You can create the calendar however if you want to be available to see a particular view, you can set up a quick view. But clicking on that button will allow you to see the new reservations as well whenever you click on that. Here's another nice example, though. So when you choose one of these options from the resource menu, and like I say, when you select it from that menu here with all the different rooms, we selected all ballrooms. And then when we clicked off on the calendar, it brought that calendar right here in the middle portion of the screen. And again, all your times are listed, where it will allow you to see what space is available to rent out. When you do click on, say for instance, you do click on, this is the summit, in this case, all ballrooms. Now, if you click on that, it will open up the room settings, basically your room settings when you were setting up the facilities themselves. And right in here, I went ahead and did put a small description of some of our rooms, just for the sake of being able to identify if people wanting to know, what is in there and amenities. So you have a description of it. And again, it'll break it down for you, what settings are, in there for that room space. When you're ready to book the room, you have your calendars right there of each of the rooms. You'll then you can then highlight what time you want to highlight. You pick what day at the top, and then you can highlight the times in between. And you can again space it out. You can highlight the whole multiple rooms if you wanted to, if you're going to do multiple rooms. And again, if you see this grayed out part of it, it means it's non-bookable. I mean, it means it's closed off, and you have to do only the places that are in white right here. And I know you have to see the trainer background, but you can kind of see the white background versus the gray, and that's why you want to make sure that you just select the white area, because that's the available part. So just to show you gray out versus the white, that non-bookable versus the bookable. And then again, when you get ready, when you highlight that time, then you're actually starting that reservation. Now, going back to what we talked about before, we have those internal versus external reservations. You then will be able to name your event. You will type your event name in the space up here, and then you'll get the option to choose what type of schedule you want, whether it's going to be external for a regular rental, or if it's going to be something that your location needs to block off for a program or something. That becomes an internal reservation. So, then you can actually see that internal, you won't have any fees at all tied to that. So you don't have to worry about having to take fees off and stuff whenever you're booking it. Just make it internal, and then it won't have any fees included. Now, if you're doing the external, you'll actually want to make sure that you'll get to select those fees when it comes that time in the process, and we'll see that here in just a moment. But first off, though, just see that you type your event name, you choose that, and then you'll say whether it's external or internal. And again, you'll have the event types up here, which we'll see in a second. And again, these are tied a little bit more, in the next slide. And when I say when the event type, You are required to select this though, because what this does, the event type is your parameters for the rental. You actually select, and for a few, we have a few of them that, if you want to do an in-house program versus something that the city's doing, or something that we're going to have an outside customer come in and rent one of our rooms. That's one of the things that you wanted to make sure you select the right one, because you have set parameters for how that rental is going to take place. So you'll choose one of those, and then again, this will guide you through the rest of the wizard how that space is going to be rented out. Now notice that we talked about the event name. I just created one called Around the World Event, and it's going to be an external rental because we're actually going to have fees involved in this. And as we go through the steps, you're going to see how all of this comes all together at the end. We chose the Summit facility rental because it's also going to be an outside rental, and we'll have actually parameters set for that rental that we're going to want to implement along this wizard. And right now, we don't have to worry about prep code. If we want to set up time to allow, for them to use the room to get set up before the rental begins, you can put those in there and set them up. If not, don't worry about it. But then the rental time, you'll come right down here, and you'll select the time for the space. And for instance, we just chose the 5 to 9 o'clock for May 8th for this Friday, just as a sample. And then you put the number of people that you're going to have in there. In this case, we're going to have 30 people for the event. And you'll put those, again, you'll list those in there in each of those fields, and then we'll go to the next part. Again, it's an external reservation, which also means there'll be fees involved. Just want to make sure you know exactly the difference. Now, you'll also see the next part of it, the reservation details. And then in here, you're going to make sure if you're not for sure that this is going to happen, the default setting inside ActiveNET is tentative. So when you come up, you're going to see it show as a tentative reservation. You can change it to if you don't know the dates and stuff, you can make it normal, and you basically confirm up that time. They also have it where in ActiveNET it's basically up for a year, and unless you change that setting, the reservation type. But you can have tentative bookings on for about a year. You'll see the expiration date, and when I set this up yesterday, it was showing May 4th. So you get 2021. So you can see here, you can have the tentative thing on there if you want, and that will list it right here for you how long you got. Now you're going into the customer part of it. Now this should be very, very familiar. You're going to either choose your existing customer or you're going to create a new customer, and it's not any different than what we've done before. You'll go into the search part of it. You'll actually find the last name. If it's in there, you'll then select that person and their location, and it'll attach it to this reservation. And then if it's new, you'll just fill out just like we've done in past videos and fill out all the information, and then it will take you back to the spot where we can go through the wizard, more to finish out the rental. Oops, sorry about that. So then you then get to custom questions. Now some of y'all may have set up custom questions for your locations when it came to rentals or just checking things out. This is where that part comes in. And custom questions can be used throughout ActiveNET, and rentals are no different. We can now add custom questions that will help you make the best experience possible for your clients. And then for us, it's real important, are they going to be having catering? You can select some of these options. If there's going to be alcohol involved, if there's going to be AV equipment or any other kind of use of microphones or projectors and stuff, those kind of things you want to know up front, and so you can plan better. So that's where custom questions have really come into play. And again, depending on how that event type is set up, again, in this case, the facility rental part for the Summit, if we set those in the parameters that we wanted questions, this is where it will appear in the process. Again, everything's based on that event type. So if you do need to have certain questions, certain parameters in the rental, in that event type, you'll want to make sure that those are selected. Waivers. Okay, so we have waivers now in this next section. So when you're meeting with a client and all together, it'll be pretty much a verbal, that, hey, I understand that this is, all this stuff will be listed in the permit, and we agree to everything that's coming up ahead. These two areas on the waiver will need to be checked. You'll want to include this in the permit, as well as agree to the use of the facility and all of the event parameters that are all set. So again, they agree to waiver, and these things have to be checked to move to the next section. We'll then have event notes, and again, we've seen this before in a few other areas of ActiveNET. Now, the important difference, though, is that when you have staff notes, we're talking like room logistics. We're talking about reminders to when we get to making setup reservations with the tables and chairs. Those kind of things could be listed in the staff notes up here. When it comes to customer notes, now if the customer had made a request and you want that on the permit, remember this part. If it's a customer thing, it's going to be printed on the permit. And there'll be either reminders and stuff that you want the customer would like to have in there that will be shown on the permit whenever we print it. So those are these are the general areas that you will find where you can put that information. Staff, think of it as internal, external in a way if you want to. Staff notes are more internal, so you'll be seeing it just from our end. The customer notes will be more external. They'll be printed on a permit, or they'll show reminders and stuff that need to happen that they need to have in writing on the permit. So those are the two distinct differences when it comes to event notes. Now we're getting to fees. So now the fees part of it really is nice though, because it's real flexible. If you mess up something, you can delete it and start again and add a new fee. And as we've seen in there, we have those charges templates that you can set up. And all of those, you can set up one and you can rename it. You can, if you needed to do a customized price for something, you can do that. And you see on here, you'll have the list of your room that you've rented. Here's again the confirmation of the times and how much, and we're about to select the fees. And then again, if you select the wrong one, you can go back and there'll be a delete button over here. You'll see that in the next slide. But hitting that plus sign that you see over here will add a fee to that space. Okay, now we're getting into the fees. Now you remember those templates, the charges, you're going to see the primary charges. If you set those up for your rooms, you're going to see those in this menu. And in here, you will then select in the primary charge, select the room that you're going to be using for, if it's that space. For the summit, we labeled out when our primary fees, and if they're using multiple rooms, we have the actual day and nighttime stuff listed, so it's easy to select. So again, you'll select that fee, and then again, that's going to be your primary charge, and then we'll go into the next slide to see how that looks. After you select that, you now will have the fee. It will list out, because it's a charge, it's going to list out automatically unless you, again, want to override it. All of these, like again, our event name, the actual room that we're using, again, the GL accounts, these all should be pre-populated in there. Again, that's one of the great things about charges, which again is in the financial menu. You can have those set up where they'll pre-populate when you select them. And then again, it will list all of these things right here in the next section under general information. Very, very important. So make sure to verify that these amounts are correct, and if they are set up right, then you'll be able to move to the next step. Now again, once you have all that done, you hit the submit button when you're finished, and you'll verify info. You can edit and delete it and all, and then if that's all correct and everything, you can then move to the next step. We're going back to it. If you need to delete and go back and do something, you'll see down here, you'll have the list of the room space, the amount, the total, and then you'll have a place where you can edit it, or you can delete it with a little trash can. So again, you have it's very flexible to take away or add to if there was any other things you needed to add. Any extra fees too, you could add through this stage as well. If there was linens, or if there was also going to be, for instance, I don't know, if you were going to do chair covers or something for a wedding. I mean, all those could be added in there. If you have the fees set up, you can add them in here as well. But again, this is your fee confirmation part of it. And then to move on, you'll see down the bottom corner, there'll be a next button just like this, and we'll move on to the next one. Now we're down to that shopping cart. So you're going to confirm your final, before you finalize everything. You can go back and modify anything you've done before. You'll see down here below, it gives you a confirmation. This is my Michael Levy Around the World event, and you can modify this booking if you like, or you can go to the next part to check out, like you do on an Amazon. You'll check out to pay for it. Same process applies here. A lot of these things hopefully will have some sort of connection, and if you see it on another website, this is going to be very, very similar to that. And you'll be able to, either modify or check out from this point. Now, when you have payment methods, there's a lot of different options. We've seen that across ActiveNET. You can either do the cash, you can do check, you can do credit card. All of those are available. The next thing, though, this next little section is very interesting because you can be very, very flexible when it comes to payments in ActiveNET. And we have a lot of areas where you can make a payment plan. You can either pay in full if you want to with the next step, or we can set up a payment plan, which will also show that process. A lot of people might need that, and you can set it up however you like, as far as if your location decides on a certain payment plan, or if you don't have any preference. Whatever works for the customer, it's very flexible to do, which will be nice. So we'll see that here in the next slides. So again, this should look very familiar. We get to the pay now part of it. It's going to populate that actual price of what's in here. Now, because we're going to do a payment plan on this one because it's $1,000, okay, we have the options to pay a certain portion of it now and then schedule other payments for other dates, whether it's every month, it's every bi-weekly or something. We can set up the frequency as well. But here we're looking at setting up our first initial charge because I want to put down $250 on this rental out of the $1,000. It's kind of my down payment today, and I'm going to set up another smaller payments for my event's going to probably be, and say for instance, I know we set the May 8th date, but if it was in, say, for instance, October or something, we could set up multiple months and set up when those payments will be. It's very flexible to do. And again, the next step, we'll see how that all ties in. But we'll pay for it with putting down $250. And I'm using the credit card example today to show you how that all will work. So we're going to pay $250 today, but we're also going to actually schedule $750, the remaining balance, for other dates. And you'll see down here in the right corner, this is kind of how it's going to look. So you're setting the $250 here, and this is $750 is what's left that we need to schedule. Here's our first part. The next part, again, is now we're going to go ahead and verify the credit card information. So we enter our credit card stuff right in here. And this is my good old friend Danny Duncan that has a credit card that has used. We can now put his information in to pay for this $250. Now you will see up here, same thing again. The $250 is all we're taking in right now. So what we're paying now is just $250. We verify that, and then we're going to make sure we're doing a payment plan. And then now we're just going to hit pay to pay off the $250 down payment. And in a payment plan, you'll see below here that you can then choose the number of payments that are going to be that we need for this rental. And it could be up to your discretion, or if you want to work out a plan with the customer up to their date, we can do that. So we can very much do any kind of thing. You can change the frequency over here on the far right side. Most of the time, monthly is default. But as actual custom plans, you can choose how many payments. You can see that there's a long list, so it's very flexible. So you can just select how many payments you're going to do, and then it's going to populate what dates you're going to have. So if the date was on, if you needed to pay, if you have the event and pay off after that, you can then you could say 4 additional payments need to be made, and it's going to populate how much is left for those payments that are going to be owed. Again, so you can select how many of those, and then it'll pre-populate the remaining amounts that will be owed. All of this is, again, customizable. And you can also set up the first payment as well on a certain date as well. But you have to change the frequency and then the number of payments that are at your disposal, however you want to do it. And then, after all of that said and done, the transaction's completed, because once you set that payment plan up, it's all pretty much done. You then confirm with that customer, and then paying that, then you're going to have your $250 paid off now, and the rental itself with the scheduled payment plan is complete. And this is what it will show at the end for your confirmation, which is really, really nice. Also notice that you'll see at the bottom over here, after you see the transactions completed, you'll see a permit and a receipt button at the bottom. Now, those are important because they also serve as two different things here. And a permit is not necessarily a receipt. And if you know receipts in the past of what we've seen, receipt is a receipt in this case. It is actually the amount of the payment. It also does list the payment plan numbers. We'll see an image here in just a second on how that will look. But again, don't forget about the permit and the receipt buttons down here at the bottom. Because in a sample receipt, you're going to see that same receipt is like what you see in an ActiveNET altogether. It's going to list the activity you're in. In this case, the payment plans are going to show if they're established. And if you see a permit, the permit will then generate a PDF of everything that y'all have done. All of those at Wizard that we went through. That's going to give you a whole breakdown of exactly all that now that after we've selected it. It will, again, serve as your, almost like your contract, with the customer. So any of their specific needs, any of their, any requests that are had, if there was those customer notes, that's where the permit part of it comes in. You can actually generate this at any time. So this part here, this is a receipt. This looks very familiar, I'm sure, from all of our past parts that we've generated receipts from a transaction. Same thing here that we did. And this, again, shows you that we made that payment of $250 initially for that down payment. But then we also came down in here, and we also it'll also show us that we can then have a payment plan on it too. And that will also show inside the receipt as well. But again, this gives you a confirmation of that first part. And then when we get to the permit, you'll also see, and I did a shorter version of the receipt because you'll pretty much remember all the rest of that. But they'll also show you the payment plan on the receipt as well. When you get to the permit, this will generate a PDF permit. And at the top, this will look very familiar, kind of like what the receipt does. It gives you options of how to output it. You can either send it, print it on your printer. You can also send an email, or you can save it as a PDF. And if you wanted to attach it with an email, you can do that too. But send the email, we'll do it automatically through ActiveNET as well. You'll see here the actual location name, where you're renting it, the phone number and the fax number if they have it. In this case, we don't know for sure if we want to do it yet, but we'll put a tentative part. But the simple fact that depending on your location, that's what you'll want to do. And with new stuff, you make just different decisions as well on how you want to do this. But again, when you come in to do a permit or any kind of reservation, and the default status is going to be tentative. So you can change that at any time to make it a regular rental where it's all firmed up. And then you have, again, because it's tentative, it's also considered, it can be removed if not set. And the expiration date for that to go away is going to be May 4th of 21. So a year from the time that we made this reservation. And then you'll also see here all your demographic information, the customer name and email and stuff. And then here's your fee breakdown. Now, again, we talked this was $1,000 altogether. And then the actual payment today we made was $250, and the remaining balance is $750. First part of the permit part of it. The next part of that permit you're going to see, it's going to be the booking summary. You'll have confirmation of your dates and times, and you'll also see how many people you had put in there. All of this again can be edited, and since it's tentative, it still can be edited at any time. But these are how it's all break down. And again, if you remember, this is how we went through that wizard. So it breaks down everything that we've put in there all together. And then it also shows you, again, we'll get down to the payment schedule in just a minute. And then here again, the payment and refund. So here's a receipt number of what occurred today. And we show our payment of today of $250. So it gives you the receipt number. And then it will also give you the payment schedule that we were talking about. Since we made up that schedule, you can then see the dates and times that we agreed on for the amount due. And again, all of these are customizable and can be changed. And again, all of that is showing, broken down here on this part of the chart. And then the schedule, then again, is your confirmation of the actual rental. So you're going to have here your room that you've rented, ballroom 1 for the summit. Here's the name of the event for the start date of May 8th. From 5 to 9 p.m. So you're getting all your confirmation of the schedule right there. And then the final part, you'll have a part where you can then, if you're having the customer sign for stuff, this is where that would happen as well at the bottom of the permit. We are now to the end. That was pretty much how all of that is set up. It's really not too bad. And again, the more practice you have, the better. That's the part that's going to be very, very important, is to keep practicing these rentals. Again, we looked at the internal versus the external. In internal, we don't have fees. In an external event, we will have fees associated with that rentable space. Then we'll also look at how that rental wizard works. Again, you break down each of those sections, whether it was from the waiver, whether it's from the fees, and when it comes to the room selection. All of those are available in that wizard, and again, it breaks it up to where you really get to see and making sure that you have everything covered. And that's what's so great about seeing that in a really, really quick, and you can, again, minimize some of those things, you can maximize them. All of them is very flexible. And then we also saw how the different resources work. You can, again, choose to book mostly probably the different rooms that you want to rent out for those spaces. But you can also do, if you want to do, we're going to, I know for the summer we're going to have another thing called private sessions that we'll work on to book our massages and personal training sessions. Now, you can do it as well through the rental booking system. However, I don't think you need to go into that much depth when you're doing like private appointments and stuff. So there's two different ways. You can do it either way, but as far as you kind of keep it on a very simple scale when it comes to booking appointments and stuff. But again, you have the resources available. If you wanted to do a schedule on there, you could do it. Again, those are all those available. And if you wanted equipment to be checked out or something, and for a certain amount of time, you could do that too, depending on location. And then we looked at how to pay it. Whether if you wanted to pay it for, you could do that. If you wanted to pay on a payment plan, you could do that as well. And you could set that, all of those, the frequency of how often you're going to be making the payments and how many they're going to be. So in this case, we just picked 4, and for 4 different months that we're going to have to pay this thing off. And that's how we can either set up the plan and then pay it, or just do it all together and pay the $1,000 if you wanted to right away. Again, very, very flexible, customizable, every way you look at it. It's all there, and it can be done either way you want to. And then finally, we looked at today at the exporting of the permit and how you could either send it an email. You can also then take it from that page, and you can also save it as just a document itself. If by chance, at the end, if you wanted to hold on to that in a file, you could put that in there. But you can export that document there and to print it even at your own printer. All of those, we have different methods of how to output that information. So it's all together there. We are now at question and answers. And again, I hope that if you've taken anything away from this, that internal bookings are going to be where there's not going to be a fees associated with that space. If you have an external rental, it's going to have fees associated. But anything that you take out away of that, that's the biggest part. And when you do internal, makes it really, really easy, so you don't have to worry about all that other junk whenever you're trying to just scoop up a space either to put a program inside. So all of those are available. I highly encourage you to go back and watch this stuff again, because there are a lot of components. Even the wizard really does a good job breaking down that information, because in the end, if you've got your bases covered when you go through each of these stages of the rental process. And when you're working with customers, it allows you to have that flexibility to work with them on a payment plan. Any of those things are available in ActiveNET versus what we had before. And I think that, especially in a more user-friendly way, and hopefully this was very, very helpful. Well, again, this is about all we have. If you have any other questions, I'd love to hear from you at this time.